Hello and welcome to Chapter 10 of the Entrepreneurship Textbook, 3rd edition. In this chapter, we're talking about creating revenue models, which is one of the key essentials for a business. One of the things about being a business owner or having a business, like you have to have some form of revenue model. Even if you start a social entrepreneurship, you have to bring in money. In order to make things work. Every single type of business or organization needs to have a funding to continue to run. So what is revenue, right? Stability to generate revenue, identify how you're going to generate profit, right? Revenue model is a key component of a business model. Identifies how the company is going to earn income and generate profit. Like how are you going to make money, right? How much will customers pay? How many customers do you need to stay in business? How much revenue can be generated from each sale? How much does each stream contribute, right? If you have different income streams for your business, how much does that contribute to your business? Different models have different streams, and so not every single one is the same. And of course, affects who customers will be. So one of the first ways to look at sales, distinguish revenue models, unit sales, right? So unit sales revenue models measures revenue based on how many units sold. So think about it like if I sold 2,000 televisions, right? That's 2,000 units. How much money am I making back in profit? So sometimes some products have a high margin of profit. Others have a thin line of margin of profit. For example, Walmart is a particular example of a unit sales revenue. Walmart has to have a lot of people come into the doors because they are selling at thin razor margins. Like they're making very small margins on each product sold, but because they get so many people in the door, they're able to make a larger amount of profits. Of course, they're pretty successful. Think about it for yourself. Like for each unit you're selling, if you're doing a unit sales revenue, how many do you need to sell in order to stay in business? Advertising revenue model relies on the amount of revenue gained through sales of advertising the product or service. So think like, for example, magazine and newspapers charge for ads or for the space of the wording, right? So if you look at a magazine, for example, GQ or some other type of nationwide magazine, the advertisement you see in that magazine is a form of their revenue, right? They sell space in their magazine for advertisers. That's why when you subscribe to the magazine, they keep it at a very low rate for you to subscribe because they want you to be in it, because these newspapers or these magazines are selling the advertisers like, hey, we have 2 million readers in our subscription, that way that they can sell high advertisement. So again, the more readers the newspaper magazines they have, or the more people that visit a website, the more they can sell advertisement. Data revenue model, right? They generate revenue by selling high quality, exclusive, valuable information called data assets. So they have this data. There are the companies that do that. So I ran into actually a company who sells data and private airlines, right? Private flying, right? And so they have this data information on people who fly private planes, and because they've collected this data, they sell it. So if you collect data assets, you can sell it. Intermediation revenue model, methods which third parties such as brokers or intermediaries. Basically, a broker is someone who organizes the transaction between the buyer and the seller, so it's the middle person. Licensing revenue model, so you make money through giving permission to other parties using your protected intellectual property such as your copyright or patent or trademarks in exchange for royalties or fees. So think about it like music, for example, right? An artist creates a song, they copyright it, and then of course you can use it, if you pay a royalty or you pay a fee to use it, a particular song. or if it's on the radio, they make a fee from it, from royalties. Franchising revenue model. So, for example, classic example is McDonald's. It's a franchise. You can be a franchisor. You bought into McDonald's. You bought into their model of business, and you pay a certain percentage back to McDonald's for using their logos and all that stuff from McDonald's. Subscription revenue model. Think about it like this, like your Netflix, right? That's a subscription-based model. So if you're selling a bi-monthly or yearly, that's how you're charging folks. Professional revenue model, think about it, an attorney, a consultant, accountants, they charge by the hour or by their service. So usually, most time it's done by contract work, or for you paying for a project, for a contract, or based on hourly rate. Utility and usage revenue, basically what you use is what you get charged on. So for your data or storage usage, that's what you get charged on. Freemium model, basically you think about it like this, like Dropbox. If you have a Dropbox account, right, you can use it. You can open an account for free. You can get the data for free you can store data in there for a certain amount. Once you reach that limit, if you want to continue using that or gain more data to store, you're going to have to pay a price. So that's a really popular one, the freemiums, right? It's free up until a certain amount, and then of course you got to pay. So again, that's one thing. Again, think about it. And also cell phone companies, for example. It used to be where they would give the phone basically for free, and then of course charge you a monthly service to use the phone, and you would be locked into a 2-year contract. Phones don't do that anymore, but they used to do that. Revenue and cost drivers. Revenue models influence how your customers and how you reach them. Again, customers, the frequency of how much they purchase, right? So for example, if you charge your customers $5 a transaction and they only come once a year, you're going to have a lot of customers come in the door, if you're charging $5 compared to perhaps, if you're charging a customer $3,000, they only come once a year, that $3,000 is perhaps what you needed from them. So it's like comparing buying a car comparing to buying a cup of coffee, right? Buying a cup of coffee is $3 or $4, but you're continuously coming, and over the years that can add up to a couple $1,000s compared to a car when you need it every so much every 5-10 years. Of course you're going to charge $25,000-$30,000. Again, cost drivers, cost of goods sold, so how much direct cost of producing the certain product, right? So how much did it cost you to produce this product? Even if it's intangible or tangible, it must have cost you something. Your operations cost, you have to think about how much money am I spending to actually operate my company. So if you have a brick and mortar store, how much is rent? How much is utilities? Your employees? So you got to think about all that. Income statements, of course, or also known as a profit loss statement. A financial report that shows revenue, expenses, and profit over a period of time. A pro forma income statement is projection estimate of what the company will potentially do. Depreciation, cost of wear and tear, and amortization, cost of intangible assets. Operating profit, amount left over once you've paid all your costs and expenses. Interest expense, of course, indicator of the company's debt. Taxes, of course, you got to pay your local, state, and federal taxes and municipality taxes if it applied. Net income, of course, what is left over after all costs and expenses and tax have been paid. So you kind of have to think about that. So one of the things that people trip up about is that they sell the product for $10, but out of that $10 that you're selling it for, how much money are you actually making in net income? It's one thing to sell it for $10, but how much net income are you getting? So for example, a number of years ago, I used to sell textbooks or books on Amazon. A number of years ago. This was in the early 2010s, back when it was pretty simple and easy to sell things on Amazon. Of course, things have changed since that time. And so I used to make a good profit, or like if I sold a book, like a textbook, for like $90. This was a time where textbooks were still popular and people would still buy them compared to now where it's different. If I sold a textbook for $90 that I had because the bookstore wouldn't take it back or they would give me like $3 back, and I was selling on Amazon for $90, I could, after delivery, and of course Amazon would charge me for a transaction because I set it up there on Amazon. I could easily make probably like at least recoup $70 in profit because the shipping would be like 9 or 10. This was again in the early 2010s, so I would pay for the shipping. Depending on how fast the customer wanted it. So let's just say it was about $10 or so for shipping. And then Amazon would charge me a fee like $5 or so. And then the rest was all profit for me. Or, $70 for what I pay for it. Let's say I paid more money for the book. But you get the idea. How much money are you making back from your product that you're selling? Even a service as well. When you're selling a service, you have to think about how many hours it took you to produce that product. So, for example, if you got hired to be a consultant, how many hours of service did you have to do in order to produce the service that the customer hired you for? Pricing strategies. That's a really tricky thing. You don't want your prices too high or too low. If you're too high, people are not going to buy it if they don't see value in it. If it's too low, people think it's going to be too cheap. The best way you can do it, and of course pricing is a science, is of course see what the market rate is charging, right? Be around that similar space or charge a little bit more. But it's better to charge a little bit higher, and then you can give discounts and see what people are buying. So for example, if your product is like $99, let's just say you're selling your product at $99, and then nobody's really budging at $99, and all of a sudden, hey, here's a 25% discount or a 30% discount, and then you drop your price to whatever that to what that is, and let's just say your product starts selling at $75, people are starting to buy your product. Hopefully you're still making a profit off the $75, but that's one way you can play around to see the price. It's better to start off a little bit high because you can come down, but once you start low, it's difficult to go back up. It's difficult to go up, right? If you charge $199 and you're like, well, I'm not making profit, I'm going to charge $9.99, and people are going to be like, whoa, that's a significant steep increase in price. Again, create consistent revenue streams. The more revenue streams you have, the better. Pricing products and services. Again, there's no right way to determine strategy. Look at what the market is, understand your brand, and of course carry theme throughout packaging and marketing. Again, competitive-led pricing. Match the price of other best-selling or similar products and services. I used to do competition-led pricing, so when I would sell books on Amazon, like I would look at what that price, what the book would sell at. For example, if I'm selling a textbook or if I'm selling a book and there's the same book on Amazon, one thing that I would do, I would charge 1 cent less, and people would buy my book. It would buy the book I was selling. It'd be funny, like if someone's selling the book at like $10. I would sell it at $9.99, and my book would sell just that 1 cent difference, and my book would sell. Customer-led pricing, right? Ask the customers how much they're willing to pay. Loss leader, pricing strategy where business offers at a lower price to attract more customers and, of course, increase it. Or do an introductory offer, right? If you're offering a new product or service, you can offer an introductory rate at first to get them in the door, and then, of course, with the intent that they're going to be a repeating customer, then you can charge. A lot of companies do that, especially if they're trying to get you subscription, right? You've probably seen this advertisement a lot, like, hey, join now for $9.99 a month, introductory rate, and then they'll charge you what the regular price should be later on. Skimming, new product service face little no competition. Psychology price, again, do like if you do in the 99, like 9.99 or 10.99, people, for example, will think they're saving money just because of 1 cent difference. Bundle pricing, right? You can bundle services together. Calculating prices, again, what's your break-even analysis, right? What's your fixed cost divided by your sales per unit and variable cost per unit? What will be your break-even? Cost set pricing, again, involves calculating all the costs involved in manufacturing or delivering the product or service, plus all their expenses, target return, and basically a pricing strategy where the price is based on the amount of investment you put into your business, and value-based involves pricing your product based on how it benefits the customer. Thank you for joining me in this talk about revenue models. Thank you.